concert actually here with the National Symphony was in 2000, and it was a Hitchcock montage program. So not complete films, but just little clips of films, ending with North by Northwest, which is one of the great film scores, of course, and great films. And then it just went away. Every 2 years, you do something very small. Thank you for that backdrop. Thank you, Donnie.
That's right. Give me a hand.
Can we just, yeah, how did you get that scar? It's a long story. There we go. Don't move, Michael. And since then, we would do a movie program every so often, and then suddenly in 2006, we had The Wizard of Oz, which was the first full-length movie that we did a long time ago. But now, with all these new movies being released, it was very hard for a long time to actually get permission to do them. And now it's really brought orchestral music to a much wider audience than we've ever had a chance to do before. So thank you for that, because it's a glorious score. You have, I don't know if you read music with our dinosaur fellow there, but this is Act 2.
Study that. You'll be conducting that in 20 minutes.
You have to give it back. But this is Act 1. E.T. is about this size, the entire movie, or Jaws. And Michael will tell you, music has gotten more involved. There's almost everything is underscored. And how has that come about?
Well, a lot of times, you know, the biggest struggle is finding out where not to put music, because you don't want music everywhere. You know, if you have music everywhere, it's like sitting next to someone in a movie theater who's just doing this to you all the time. You're like, man, I'm trying to watch the movie. Stop it. Stop it. So you want to find places where you don't have music, so that when music comes in, it means something. It's important. It has something to say, as opposed to just being wallpaper. You know, these movies are pretty long. I mean, E.T., I don't know what the running time is of that film, but I mean, a lot of movies have gotten a little bit longer, a little more sophisticated in storytelling and all of that. So there's more music, and now we have 2 books. You could really hurt somebody if you threw that at him.
No, you could, and you look back at well, Max Steiner, we were talking about sort of the father of film music, with starting with King Kong and then Gone with the Wind. Gone with the Wind is almost entirely underscored, but it's a lot of background music, and you write mood pieces here and there, quiet pieces, but none of this is background music. This is very much music in the forefront.
No, music is storytelling, and I remember my first film was a film called The Incredibles, and right, and the new one comes out June 15th, Incredibles 2. I know it's been 14 years. I apologize. We were busy. But when Brad Bird, who directed that film, hired me, he said to me, he goes, you know, welcome aboard. I'm really excited to have you. This is going to be the hardest job you've ever had. And I was like, okay, I'm up for that. I'm ready for that. And he said, and your music could ruin my movie. And I was like, wow, that's a great way to start out this relationship. And I said, well, I'll do my best. He goes, no, what I mean is, if you and I are not hand in hand in the storytelling every single step of the way, the audience is going to start feeling and thinking something that we don't want them to feel or think. So he and I have to make sure that whatever moves I make musically and whatever moves he makes story-wise are in sync all the time. That way, we don't lose you as an audience, and you're there all the time with the characters, with the story, with the emotional arc that is happening. And that's a really important thing. And that's one of the relationships. The most important thing about the relationship between a director and a composer is finding that road to travel together and staying on that road.
That was something that really struck me that Michael, actually I didn't realize till recently, is that you went to film school.
Yeah.
And you'd think that you would have gone to music school.
No.
And the fact that you went and learned, you know, the structure of film, the language of film, and then allowed that to inform your ability to communicate with a director, especially in a movie like this, you know, just in watching it, I was realizing how hard we made your job, especially in the first half when we were, you know, you'd have a scene where a dinosaur is eating like 7 or 8 people, and then the next scene is 2 brothers talking about, you know, their parents' divorce. To be able to go between those tones so quickly and adeptly and bring the audience along through those peaks and valleys, it's really deft and pretty incredible work.
Yeah, it is. And as a conductor, I always look at, when I explain what a conductor does, I always say it's basically like a film director. I mean, I have my score, which is my script. Instead of actors, I have musicians on stage. And if you look at my score, or any score, Beethoven, it doesn't say conductor. It just says orchestra. So I'm, you know, with an idea of how it should go, I look at myself as being off camera, even though I'm on a silly box. But what does a producer do? Because I never, like executive producer, because it seems like when you ever make a hit film, the next thing you are is a producer. And you're not directing.
That's what you get. That's what they give you. That's a little bit true. You know, on this film, it's a little our family at Amblin. We've got an Amblin T-shirt down front. Our family is very. It's very much a process that allows 3 directors, me, Steven Spielberg, and Frank Marshall, who directed Arachnophobia. It's an awesome movie.
It's a great movie.
It's a great movie. To support another filmmaker, and make sure that he has everything that he needs, and that we make sure that everything that's in his head and J.A. Bayona's head is able to get on the screen. And for me, as an experience, yes, you know, I was also the on-set writer on the movie, so I would show up with my backpack every day, my laptop, be like, "What do you need, man?" And that kind of spirit, that kind of collaborative spirit, is something that Steven and George Lucas had when they were doing Indiana Jones. And that's, you know, I admire that so much, the ability for 2 directors who probably, you know, can have their own egos and their own visions to be able to wipe all that aside and work together to make something that is hopefully more elevated than what either of them would do alone, which I think we've done with this next film. We're really, really proud of this movie. That's really what the job is, and I loved having the job. I do want to mention, we have another guest over here.
Yeah, so Matthew?
Who's a real deal paleontologist.
Matthew, would you
Yeah.
Exactly. So you were with us last summer at Wolf Trap when we.
That was me.
That was you. And would you tell the audience and our people who are watching on Facebook Live also what your official title is at the Smithsonian?
Yeah, hi, I'm Matt Carrano. My official title is Curator of Dinosauria at the Smithsonian Institution.
That's like the coolest title ever.
It's a great business card.
Coolest title ever.
That is very cool. So I remember last summer, and I'll ask you the same question, because this is all based on a novel by Michael Crichton, which is, I don't know if you say 90% science and 10% fiction, but it's very science-based. And is it possible, as far as you know, that to extract, if you found an insect in amber that had just bitten a dinosaur, to extract the blood for the DNA and mix it with frog blood or DNA? And
You're getting very specific. You're giving me a very easy way out of this question.
Well, it could be snake. It could be snake or frog. And make that would then chase a motorcycle.
And you know the answer we want.
So
the answer, you're going to disappoint this little boy?
I am going to. I'm not going to disappoint.
The answer is yes.
Anybody in the audience under the age of 9 already knows the answer to this question. I'm not telling them anything they don't already know. No, but no with a but. We can get DNA from things that are extinct. We can't get DNA from things that are very extinct. So there's a time limit on DNA. So DNA is a deliberately unstable molecule, so it doesn't tend to survive very long. But you can get other molecules from dinosaurs. You can get the fingernail off a dinosaur claw, and it looks just like the fingernail off a bird's claw. It's survived 66 or 80 or 100 million years. So those are molecules that are tough molecules. They last, but DNA does not last very long.
So even if it's preserved in airtight
amber.
If you could do that, that's the problem. So, you know, we get it out of, say, a frozen woolly mammoth, but there was no ice back then, so there's nothing to freeze since then. The world's changed too much, and the worst thing to do to DNA is put it in water. And almost every fossil we have is buried in a watery environment in the first place. So it kind of is the wrong, you wouldn't place a bet in those environments to get DNA, unfortunately. I will say, though, the idea is great. It's a great idea, and I don't know a single one of my colleagues that came even close to that clever of an idea until reading Crichton's book.
Yeah. So what you're saying, it's not impossible. Good.
So you're saying there's a chance.
But
you're also saying that the sequence at the opening of Fallen Kingdom where they retrieve the DNA from the bone that's submerged underwater is completely...
I think you have another out there.
Oh, man.
It's what, 10 years? It's not that long?
We were so proud of that.
I'll go now. I'll show myself out.
But you know, movies have such an incredible power, and you look at, I have so many of my colleagues on stage here at the NSO and people I know all over the country who became musicians because of Disney's 1940 Fantasia. And that really changed a lot of people's lives, including mine. And you look at the original Star Trek series in the 1960s and how many astronauts, young people, were inspired. Mae Jemison, the first African-American woman in space, was inspired by Nichelle Nichols, who was friends with Dr. King. And so it has a resonating cause and effect that you don't realize, I think, at the moment. And Jurassic Park had a huge effect on your industry and on inspiring all sorts of young people to go in. But what did you think when you first saw it?
And Colin mentioned that earlier, and I think if you look at young people in paleontology today, they will all point to Jurassic Park. I hesitate to admit to all of you that I was in graduate school when Jurassic Park came out already, so I was already going to be a paleontologist. I can't lay it on the feet of this movie specifically, but had I been a little younger, I'm sure it would have been true. I will say that you can go to museums all around the country, and there's a huge new dinosaur exhibit coming soon to Smithsonian as well. All of that, I think, is a product of Jurassic Park. And I think what Jurassic Park did on top of inspire people is it made it okay for grown-ups to like dinosaurs, which was never true. When I was a kid, it was not true. And so museums respond to that. I mean, I think I have a job because of Jurassic Park. Yeah. 30 years ago, there wasn't a museum in this country that had a dinosaur paleontologist on staff, and now they all do.
That's fantastic. Yay. So, Michael, you have, of course, an Oscar.
It's right here.
You have a Grammy and an Emmy, all incredibly well-deserved. You don't have a Tony Award, however. So, when is
anyone got an extra?
When is Jurassic Park the musical? Is that in
It's funny you should mention that. No. Yeah, when is that?
That's what we're here to announce.
Coming to Broadway.
That is amazing that you I mean, I wouldn't put it past you, and the fact that you're able to, you have made so many different kinds of movies. When I think of the score for Incredibles, which is this very jazzy, kind of a vibe, compared to Planet of the Apes, compared to the Marvel work that you've been doing, like it is all so different, and yet they do all have something in common in that it seems like, in every score, you're always making sure that you make a choice that no one is expecting you to make. That is, they're listening to the melody. Even if they've been listening to music for their entire lives, their brain is going to go to this one note, and you're like, we're going to this note. and I love that. I think it's just an amazing gift.
I always look at that as my ineptitude. Like, I feel like, I wasn't smart enough to go to the note they want me to go to, so I end up here. Missed it by that much.
No, it works wonderfully, and it's amazing. Just when I'm conducting this, we had rehearsals yesterday and today, and the show, of course. And I'm so drawn in. I have to remind myself that I'm working because I get so drawn into the story, and it's so compelling because at the core of it, like Star Trek, we're talking last night. At the core of Star Trek is kind of a buddy picture. It's Spock and Kirk, and that's when you care for them, and you care for the other characters. But it's basically these two guys who are dear, loving friends. And I think the heart of Jurassic World is the story of the two boys. I mean, that's what really, you have all this other stuff, but they're estranged. The one teenage boy's, squirrely, and the other one's like a little kid, and he doesn't care for him in the same way. And at the end, they're a family, and even I would hope that they would not get a divorce at the end because they'd be happy, and you don't know. But
well, the thing that we were looking for, and there are really three stories of people learning to respect and understand each other that are going on in this movie. You have the brothers, you have Owen and Claire, and then you have Owen and Blue. And Blue is such an important character. The dynamic between them, the respect that's created between them, the complete transformation that Claire goes through from being someone who looks at dinosaurs as assets on a spreadsheet, as from a very corporate point of view, into these living, breathing creatures. In Fallen Kingdom, she's a dinosaur activist. Like, she's gone completely to the other side of the spectrum. Well,
it's in the scene right after the one you saw, so it's not that big of a scene.
But you know, to be able to take these characters to mature them in the same way that hopefully the relationship with the dinosaurs is maturing, and hopefully our relationship with dinosaurs is maturing. And I throw this back to you in that, you know, as we learn more and more about dinosaurs, and I feel like you know. Both, you know, exist to educate other people and to point out, you know, how completely wrong we are in the way that we present dinosaurs to the world. And we made a very, you know, there's a scene in this film, we made a very clear point to acknowledge that these are theme park attractions, that they have, you know, frog DNA that is spliced within that makes them, in some cases, scaly, you know, green. And I'm very interested in us being able to catch up with the current understanding. So what are some of the key attributes that are missing from these dinosaurs? I know I'm setting myself up here, but I think everyone is really curious that you feel that we can help move us forward.
Well, I mean, let me start by saying I had a great time watching this movie, and I didn't sit here thinking, oh, that one's wrong and that one's wrong. I'm not one of the. I don't like going on Twitter and, you know, just complaining about that, because it's not a documentary. It's not supposed to be a documentary. It's supposed to be enjoyable. And I actually loved the moment where sorry. I love that moment, though, because it's like it's B.D. Wong saying, just, you know, take a breather, just
relax.
Have a good time. So I think, you know, we are ourselves catching up to what dinosaurs look like, and we have to face the fact that we thought we knew a lot, and we know very little now. So you know, Blue and all the velociraptors would be almost certainly covered in feathers. All these predators probably would have some sort of covering on them. Velociraptors are, you know, they're this big. I'm sorry to tell y'all. They're teeny little things. They're all probably pretty quiet. I always, you know, like to disappoint people. Dinosaurs don't roar. And they certainly don't roar right before they're going to have their dinner. It's a good way to starve. So I think dinosaurs would, right? I mean, lions don't walk up to zebras, scream at them, and then run after them, right? That kind of stuff. But you know, I think they would. I think even as a scientist, I think we are at the point now where we don't know. I mean, we know we don't know, and we used to say, oh yeah, they all look like lizards. I think who knows? I mean,
I have a question about the T-Rex. You know, there was in past years they had said, oh, it can go up to what, 40 miles an hour, and now all of a sudden I'm starting to read articles. Well, we're rethinking that. Can you explain that a bit?
Yeah, I think it has to do if you watch the original Jurassic Park and the very, you know, the iconic Jeep chase scene, and the whole thing, you know, it's 25, 30 miles an hour, must go faster, and all that. If you watch the T-Rex, and this is always the key, the T-Rex's feet never leave the ground, right? So really the difference between running and walking very quickly is whether your feet leave the ground. So the T-Rex is not running in that movie. And you know how big a T-Rex is. You know how far apart the feet are. So if you count how fast it's going and you measure out how many paces, that T-Rex is in real life going 9.5 miles an hour. But it looks like it's going like a bat out of hell. And that's what ILM said, you know, if they tried to make it run, they said it looked ridiculous. And the fact is, scientifically, we don't think it can run just based on the sort of mechanics and the structure of the legs. And we would have said 10 miles an hour based on that. So they came to that aesthetic decision, the same decision we would have said.
But then that also sort of reclassifies them into more of a scavenger type of animal?
Well, the key is everybody else is slower. So a Triceratops is slower, a duck-billed dinosaur is slower. So everything is like a little bit of a slow motion. Doesn't mean they're not running, they're just not running very fast. But nobody's running very well, maybe the Gallimimus, but you know, most of these things are just, they're not fast.
I thought that was always one of the things that made it awesome, is like its walk is your run.
Yeah, yeah.
That's awesome.
You need to run, but it doesn't need to run.
No.
So Matthew, do you have a favorite dinosaur?
No, and I don't. It's like having a favorite child. Even if you do, you don't admit it. It's not fair.
It's like having a favorite.
I like dinosaurs that are less famous in general, so I like to promote dinosaurs people don't pay attention to. So today, my favorite dinosaur is Pachycephalosaurus, because nobody cares about Pachycephalosaurus, but it's a pretty interesting dinosaur.
Oh, I care.
Okay, see, there we go.
We
Look
care.
that up.
We've got him in that movie.
He's in the next movie, yeah.
I have Is this mine thing's on? Yeah. I love the Stiggy Moloch, which is somewhat similar.
Maybe the same.
So yeah, it could have been the same. We have the Stiggy Moloch in the new
really?
movie. Yeah.
Oh, I'm even more excited.
I love him. He's really cool.
Well, once I was reading a lot about this movie before, of course, we rehearsed it. It's currently the 5th highest grossing movie in movie history. It's at 1.5.
Did all right.
What?
This kid down here is like, what?
You can't like what?
That bad?
What?
Huh? How is that possible?
Were you expecting La La Land or something to be? I mean, that's nice, but no one gets eaten. But what do you think? What accounts for the fact that it has such a I mean, think of movie history. You have amazing hundreds of years of movies, but the 5th highest grossing movie. It's astounding, and it's a great film. But what do you think? What do you think resonates with people aside from this obvious excitement?
I think that there is something about dinosaurs that within our DNA we understand that they also shared the planet with us. It's like embedded. I feel like if you put a bunch of monsters toys and then a dinosaur among them and put them in front of a 2-year-old, the 2-year-old is going to instinctively reach for the dinosaur. And I think there's something about the story of Jurassic Park, the idea that they have been brought back, that to me, and this is just my own kind of story nerd theory, that it echoes the hero's journey, but over the course of 65 million years, and in that they were born and they walked the earth and they died and now they are resurrected, and that's essentially the arc of most stories ever told. And there's something about doing that over a course of millennia that I think is a pretty brilliant kind of a movie idea.
Absolutely. And I see a lot of young people here, so we should think about going to bed. But if you're in the Hall of Nations, you saw a huge exhibit towards NASA, the 60th anniversary, so we go look for the founding of the agency by President Eisenhower. And Michael, before we leave, we have another concert, which I hope you'll consider coming to Friday and Saturday, all about NASA and space exploration, science fiction, science fact. And Michael, just tell us what your two contributions will be to that performance.
The fine people at the Kennedy Center and the National Symphony asked if I would write a piece celebrating NASA's 60th anniversary. So
you better get to work, man.
I have to get to work on that right now. No, it's Friday. Yeah. No, so I did, and I'm really excited about it because I love this orchestra so much, and I love this town so much, and these are hallowed grounds. This hall right here is pretty amazing to me. So it's quite an honor to be able to do that, and we'll be doing that this Friday and Saturday night. So if you don't have tickets, you should come see it. It'll be a lot of fun.
Definitely come see it.
But speaking of space, I do have one question. Over here, one more question.
Yes, sir.
You work here you've been in Washington for a little while?
Yes.
Okay. What can you tell us about aliens? Come on. You're on the inner circle. You must be on the inner circle. What can you tell us?
We have a pretty big Smithsonian warehouse. I haven't fully explored, but I don't think we have anything of that nature yet.
Okay,
we're
we'll
going
do that
there tomorrow.
Yeah,
we're going to the warehouse
tomorrow. Warehouse.
I just really good. There have been two hands that have been up the whole time. Okay. This guy over here and then this kid right here.
All right.
So I'm going to go to this guy really quick, and then we're going to get going. What's up?
The rating of the
movie you just watched?
Is it rated? Yes. Oh, kicking dinosaurs.
It did. It has some cursing, mostly from children. Yeah, that movie. It's PG-13. So hopefully, and as we try to make these films, and then my man right here, this guy, hey buddy.
You have a question?
The floor is yours.
He's looking for the
Last question.
dinosaur.
Okay.
Which has more incorrect things, Jurassic Park or Jurassic World? Obviously, Jurassic Park.
It's not as easy. It depends on what kind of incorrect things. You mean like science or like story? Okay, you can say a joke. Here we go.
What
sound does a dinosaur make when he sleeps?
A dinosaur.
Dino-snore.
We'll be here all week, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you, folks.
Very much.
Thank you for coming. Got to get those books back.